Hi and welcome, my name is Lawrence Baker and this video is going to be about the type tool in Photoshop. It's going to be quite long, 30 minutes. I'll start off with the obvious stuff, try and cover everything, but as we get towards the end, I'll be sort of skimming over some subjects. Let's go to the preferences in Photoshop to see what can affect the type tool. Command or Control K. Under units and rulers, under units, type, I use pixels because pixels is an absolute measurement like millimeters. If you use points, it will be affected by the resolution of the document, normally 72 or 300. So if you go to resize the image and you don't hit resample, you will resize your font in a wrong way. So I prefer to use pixels. Either or, because 1 pixel equals 1 point, but if you're not resizing, it doesn't matter that much. Pixels for me. Everything else here is not really relevant. If you understand PostScript, you've got a PostScript printer. Obviously, you'll have it ticked. If you haven't, you have it on traditional. Type. Use smart quotes. That will give you curly quotes if you try to use straight quotes, because that's the correct quote. So long story, typewriters had straight quotes because they couldn't fit the curly quote on the keyboard, and it went into almost into the PC world as well. And then they finally decided to give us the smart quotes. And if you try and use a straight quote, it will turn it into a smart quote, which is a curly quote. Enable missing glyph protection. That means if you're using a foreign font and you want to use a glyph that you haven't got, it'll try and substitute it. Bit esoteric, really. Show font names in English. If you've got kanji, Japanese on your system, the kanji system, it will show the name kanji in the font name. Use escape key to commit text. Was on by default, now off. So now I've ticked it, I've lost a way of escaping out of my text, but I use escape to commit. So on or off, it's entirely up to you. Enable type layer glyph alternates. If you highlight a character, you'll see the alternates underneath, and a glyph is anything inside a writing system from a copyright symbol to the letter A. So think of the word hieroglyphic. Number of recent fonts to display, 15. It's normally on 10. Does it matter? Choose text engine options. If you're going between an East Asian font and a Latin font, you'll have that ticked. If you're going between a Middle Eastern and South Asian font and a Latin font, you'll have that one ticked. Okay. Command 0 to fit on screen. Type tool, T on my keyboard. Shift T to cycle through. I'm on the horizontal type tool, vertical type mask tool, and horizontal type mask tool. Quickly, I'll show it to you. Command 0, excuse that. It brings up the ruby lith of the quick mask, because what it does, it creates outlines of your text, a selected outline of your text. So put test in here. Commit it. The ruby lith goes away. We have those outlines. It has to be done on a layer. It does not create a layer like the proper type tool does. G for the gradient tool. Go across, you can put a gradient in your text like that. Command and Control D to lose the marching ants. So it can prove quite useful. Let's delete that layer now. Horizontal type tool, Shift T to go to it. The vertical type tool is underneath. This works like this, and it's best done with a mono-spaced font like Courier or something like that. So let's try that. I just put test in, that'll do. You can see that it makes it a lot better to read, because the space between characters is called kerning, and going vertically like this will mess it all up. So you want a font where there's a same distance between each character. That's what a monospace font is. So there you go. I'm going to lose that now because I don't want to commit it. So that's that covered. Horizontal type tool, up to the options bar. You can have tool presets, highlight the text and just come to the new symbol, or go here and create a new tool preset. That will change it if you've got some text on the screen from vertical to horizontal and vice versa. That is the typeface. I'm going to put it onto Lato now to show you how quickly it is to find a Lato font. I'm on monospace filter, so onto sans serif, and it will find it for me. Lato regular. That is to show any fonts you've downloaded from Typekit. That's your favourites. All you've got to do is tick the star next to a typeface to make it a favourite or font. And that show similar fonts to the font you've got in the box above. Very simple, really. Make sure under Creative Cloud here, you've got under fonts, Typekit sync on if you're having problems. Right, let's lose that. Right, let's move on. That obviously is the font. I want regular. So Typeface Font. A font is only a font when it's on a page or a screen. If it's not there, there's no fonts. It just has the potential to put the font down. Typeface is Lato, font is regular. This will make the font larger and smaller. You can go like this with the scrubby sizing to go right to make it larger and left to make it smaller. This is anti-aliasing. I'll show it to you. I'll put the font size right back up again actually. If I type an S on the screen, commit it by pressing escape, Z for the zoom tool, scrubby zoom across this bit here. Those grey pixels are the anti-aliasing. Now it is vector type in Photoshop. There are a few bitmap fonts still around in some very old documents, but basically it is vector type. Now anti-aliasing, because we're on a pixel grid, makes it look good on the screen. T on my keyboard, if I turn it off and put none there, I get the jaggies and it will look absolutely awful. So, is there a time you need to turn anti-aliasing off? Yes, there is, with very small fonts, because what happens is, small fonts in size, what happens is the anti-aliasing actually makes them less readable. So I do turn it off occasionally. Sharp or whatever, I prefer sharp, but if it's not working, try another one. So I'm back to sharp now, Command 0 to fit on screen. I'm not going to commit that, I'm going to cancel that. Left align, centre align, right align. If you're using point text, and I'll come to that in a minute, you need to have more than one line for it to work properly. Change the colour, warp it. I'll just show you quickly one now, like that. So you can warp it and still maintain the vector properties of the text. Cancel. That will bring out or toggle the paragraph and character panels. Simple as that. That's for 3D for another video. So that's the options bar covered. Right, I'm going to lose that layer now because the type tool, in vertical type tool and the horizontal type tool, the minute you click down, it creates a new layer. Once you commit it, it uses the first couple of characters or whatever, first words, to name the layer. So I'm going to delete that now. Let's put the font down to some reasonable size. Actually going to type in 100 in there, tab away. Point text. Click down. From where you click on that point, you're going to create text. Nothing to do with a point measurement system. You're just clicking from a point and typing. So I type some point text. The quick brown, bit of an error there. Jumps, return over the lazy dog. That is 2 lines of point text. You can control it with the paragraph panel, but really it is point text. So if I come here, I can change about the alignment, etc. But you need to select all of it to do it properly. So I'm going to go back to left align there. If I select it all, Command A, I can play around with it like that and move it around. So really the alignment is best for paragraph text, but you can do it providing you've got more than one line. If you've only got one line there, all it's going to do is move that one line about. So you get the idea. That's for colour. You have to select it if you want to change the colour. That's to warp, I think I showed you, and that's obviously to bring the panels out. Point text, selecting text. Right, I'm using my mouse, double click, we'll select the word, triple click, we'll select the whole line, 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll select still the whole line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we'll select both lines. Very flaky, I do not like double clicking or triple clicking or whatever. I just prefer to get the cursor like this and drag across stuff quickly. But, you know, you can use the arrow keys and shift arrow, right arrow and left arrow to select stuff. You can't have a non-contiguous selection. Everything has to be next door to each other. You can't have the word there and the word dog. It just doesn't work like that. Before you've committed the text, if you drag outside, you see the cursor change to the move tool. You can move it around. At any time, if your cursor is over the text, press the Command and Control key. You can move it around. Simple as that. Right. Let's show another method of selecting. Double click here will select all the text. The other one is obviously Command and Control A, which is select all. Right, anything else about selecting? Well, the big mistake that people make sometimes is they click outside, so they committed the text, and guess what? they're going to create a new text layer, or type layer as it should be called. So I'm going to delete that now. So that's one of those mistakes. If I made a mistake and did that, I can also press escape to get out if I haven't typed any text, because in the preferences, I ticked escape to commit. If there's no text, I can use escape to escape, but if there is text, I will commit my text. So committing is a process of saying, right, that's it, I've finished, and you've got a type layer. The thing is, even if I highlight a few characters, I get prompted to commit the text. That obviously cancels everything. So it can be a bit flaky. I think that's point text dealt with, really, the selecting as well. And a big mistake people make is they don't realise they're inside the text, and then they go to use the move tool, press V on their keyboard, they put V inside. So selecting text can be problematic, and making sure you're clicking in the right place. If you click outside and you ever want to edit that text, you've got to be on the type tool and you've got to be clicked inside. And most of the time you have to make a selection. Simple as that. Let's use the character panel. Let's bring it out now. Right, that is the typeface. That's the font. I can change the size here. I have to make a selection. So on this occasion, I'm just going to use the word quick and highlight it. I can obviously make the font smaller and larger. Command Z on that, actually. I can also change the leading. Again, this requires 2 lines or more to be selected. Command A. Leading is the space between lines. Goes back a long way where we had lead typefaces set in rows, and the distance between the lead typefaces was called leading. Anyway, it will do that to your lines. You can go, I believe you can go backwards as well and bring them back together on top of each other as well if you want to. So back to auto. Now this is kerning, and kerning is the only one in the panel here that doesn't require a selection. It requires you to be ticked between 2 characters. Kerning is the space between 2 characters. Now the font designer has spent a long time getting character pairs, looking at them and setting the distance between them to make it very legible. So that is metrics. If you go to optical, it's Photoshop making the decision by looking at each individual character pair. So if you're mixing fonts and typefaces on a line, optical could work for you. But anyway, let's show you kerning that way, and it's made a gap between the F and the O. Put it back to 0. Then when you click away and click in, it goes back to metrics. This is tracking. It requires a selection, usually for more than one word, but you can use it like kerning on 2 characters, but why would you? So I would use it like this and make it, wider or thinner each way. That's really great for text on top of an image, let's say for a magazine or something, because often you need to play around with the tracking to get it to look right. So I do use that a lot. Back to 0. This I don't like at all. This will vertically scale the font. That will horizontally scale the font. Put it back to 100%. It could prove useful. I'm not saying it isn't, but I've never used it in any way at all. This is baseline shift. The baseline happens to be showing up on the point text, that line there, because anything below that line is called a descender. Anyway, let's play around with that. And that'll move it above the baseline that way, and that'll move it down below the baseline. Back to 0. Colour, you can change the colour here, obviously. Change it to a purpley colour, fine. Sometimes having that black selection round, the stuff you selected can be a pain, so Command or Control H will lose it, so you can change the colour without seeing that selection box. So you can go around and mess around with it in any way you like at all. So yeah, that's the colour. This is faux bold, like so. This is faux italic. The rest will also work like faux bold and faux italic, in the sense is if your font doesn't support it, Photoshop will do it for you. It will simulate it. But most fonts support all capitals, which I'm clicking now, small capitals, superscript, subscript, underline, strike through. Very straightforward. These are about glyphs. So that's standard ligatures. Because it's highlighted with the contextual alternates here, it means inside the panel menu here, under open type, they're ticked, and old style's ticked. Now, if I type down F and I, I'm getting a ligature between the F and the I because that's on automatically. I don't know, let's get the Glyphs panel out. I don't know if this font has, let's say, what else is ticked? These ones here, a stylistic alternates. If I bring this down a bit here, with this stylistic alternates, I'm looking for them. I've got them there. So they're the stylistic alternates. So maybe if I type a V, I might get one of them. No, I'm not. If you want it, double click it anyway. I don't recommend having anything on here automatically. I recommend you come to the Glyphs panel and do it and just add it in. You'll find all sorts of things here. I've done a video on the Glyphs panel. Everything inside a font now is a glyph. It's a proper typographical word. I prefer just to double click on something to put it into my text. Simple as that. The thing about OpenType now is you can have multilingual support. So if you're typing Cyrillic and you quickly want to put some Latin characters in, an English word in, you can do via the Glyphs panel. So I don't recommend having them automatically on personally. So if you're into your typography, the Glyphs panel is fantastic. Right, I think that's it really for the character panel. I'm going to lose that layer now by clicking here and binning it. Now the thing is, committing text for me can be done in 4 ways. You can press the tick symbol in the options bar. I can press escape for me because I ticked it in preferences. I can click away or click on another tool, or I can press Command and Control return. Playing around the type tool at first, you will make mistakes. We all make them. Clicking outside, not selecting, staying selected, or being inside the type on the screen and then putting in random characters. It is easy to do. We all do it. Right, paragraph text. Right, I'm going to click and open up a box now. So if you click and drag with the type tool, you're creating a bounding box for your paragraph text. I haven't got time to fill it now, so type, paste lorem ipsum, too large, click inside. You always have to click inside, Command and Control A, and bring the size down to about 35 pixels. Tab away. So that is a great way of putting in filler text. It's just random Latin words. Now, how do I know it's paragraph text? I've got the bounding box. I can convert it back, but I will warn you, this sometimes causes problems. Select the layer. That's really important. Type, convert to point text. Click inside. You can see it's point text now. It starts from a point there. It's underlined. Click again on the layer. You always have to select the layer. Type, convert to paragraph text. Click inside. You've got paragraph text. The trouble is sometimes it's very flaky. What's happened is I've got point text inside of paragraph text and it's completely ruined it. It really throws you sometimes. So it is very flaky. So what I'm going to do is delete that layer again, click on the bin, back to the horizontal type tool, left mouse key press, click and keep it pressed to create that box. Go to type and go paste lorem ipsum. If I play around with this now, you can see it's doing its job. Right, paragraph panel, left align, center align, right align. This is justify last left, and the word last means last line. So justify last left, it's done its job. Justify last center, done its job. Justify last right, done its job. Justify all, hasn't done its job. Paragraph panel menu, every line composer. What happens with single line composer? Photoshop is looking at each individual line. With every line composer, it's looking at the whole block of text. It usually works. If it doesn't work, panel menu, under paragraph panel, justification, and play around with this. Not for this video, but it's quite straightforward when you get into it. Also, try Roman hanging punctuation, and that will put any commas or full stops at the edge outside of the box. So you can see it's put 1 or 2 full stops outside of the box. The other one here, you can hyphenate here, and that can be controlled from here. The hyphenation, you can decide when you're going to get it, etc. Very straightforward. I don't like hyphenation. I'm going to turn it off. So that's that. This is left indent. So if you drag that way, you'll indent it from the left. You can even do it negative if you want to as well. Back to 0, tab across. This is right indent. Do it negative if you want to as well. 0, tab across. This is indent first line, like so. Back to 0. This is space before paragraph and space after paragraph. If I come here and do a return somewhere like so, I'm not getting a proper paragraph and it's ruined the text above, but that's another issue. If I go Command and Control Z and try space before or space after, it's entirely up to you. I like space after paragraph. I come up here somewhere, return, I'm getting the space. Simple as that. Let's put that back to 0. -8 we covered. All goes wrong, reset paragraph. Same for the character panel. You can just reset character. And sometimes that might be necessary. What I would tell you is the most flakiest tool inside of Photoshop is the type tool. It's not perfect. Photoshop is not designed for huge amounts of text, and sometimes I prefer to go in with an image into Illustrator and use the typographical tools inside, or the type tools inside of Illustrator. Anyway, that's that. That said, it still does a damn good job. I forgot to point out in the character menu, English UK, that's my language, and that's anti-aliasing. What I will say is, if you go to edit, and you're clicked inside, of course, edit, check spelling, it will check the spelling, and none of this will be right because I'm using English UK. Done. Also, I can go to edit and find and replace text if I want to as well. Very straightforward, like any word processor. Right, that's the paragraph panel covered. What else is there really? Well, there's paragraph styles and character styles. And quickly, what that means is you'll have to have a template document, for instance. And what you can do is set up paragraph styles. If I double click on this, it's much like the character one as well. You can make these changes, give it a name, and then you could apply it to paragraphs, or with the character styles, apply it to text. And then when you update the paragraph or character styles, it will update the whole document. It is document specific. You can't have it going between documents, unfortunately. I don't think you can at the moment. So it is useful if you're mocking up web pages, or you're working with a client that has a set font, a set paragraph size, etc., because that will allow you to update everything at once if they change their mind. So if I was going down that route, definitely paragraph styles and character styles I would definitely use. Right, what else is there in the type panel? These are pretty obvious. Add fonts from typekit, panels that you want to open, anti-aliasing, orientation, obviously. By the way, you can do that here as well, as I pointed out, and it looks awful. But anyway, you can do it there as well. Extrude to 3D, that's all in the options bar. Create work path means that if you've got some text on the screen, you can create a work path out of it. It won't affect the text that's there. It just creates a work path. Convert to shape will stop it being vector type and convert it to a shape, which is vector, but it would be a shape. Rasterize type layer. Do not do this unless you really have to, because you're using a filter or something. Even then, when prompted, go to Smart Object, because it will allow you to update the text. Anyway, convert to point text we've covered. Warp text, that's up there as well. We don't need to use that. Match font. Let's say you've got an image on screen and you want to use that font. It's a JPEG or something. You just click that and it will prompt you to put a box around the font you want, and it will go look online on Typekit and see if it can give you that font. I have to say it is flaky sometimes, but it will give you alternatives. But there are other font companies out there that have better match font systems. Font preview size. This is about when you bring that drop down there. I'm seeing the previews in extra large because I've got bad eyes. Language options. That was in the preferences, so I had the opportunity to use East Asian features, etc. Update all text layers. This is about bitmap font. If you've got an old bitmap font in a document, you can update it to a new open type 1 or true type 1, etc. Replace all missing fonts. If you've opened a document and it prompts you to resolve the fonts and you didn't do it, you cancelled, this will allow you to update the whole document, every type layer. This one will be actually just for the layer, I believe. So that will do one layer at a time. If you click on it, you'll see, yeah, you can go around and do that. Those you'll very rarely, will be highlighted, but it's all about if you open up another person's document with a font that you don't have in it, you can update it if it's bitmapped, or also resolve it or replace it if it's available on Typekit. Load default type styles and save default type styles are extremely flaky. Now, if I reset character, if I show you now, what it does is it puts me back to Myriad Pro because it's changed all the text as well. Regular and 12 points or pixels. So that's my default font. I would tell you that trying to save and use other ones is an absolute nightmare. So I don't like using it at the moment. So I'm happy with Myriad Pro, regular, 12 points and just changing the size. That's it covered, guys. I don't think there's much else I can go on about. I hope you've stayed with me because this is probably about 30 minutes long. Thank you very much.